Hello, in our last video we looked at the role of DNA in making proteins, and we looked at these 4 bullet points. Now, if we know the code on the DNA of a living thing, we can tell the structure of the proteins that are made. If we can tell the structure of the proteins that are made, we can have some idea of how they work and what they do for the cells and the body, and we can also figure out what happens if they don't work properly. So what could possibly go wrong with the making of these proteins and what effect that has on living things. So the idea was to learn how to sequence the code on living things. And the first one was done in 1976. And it was a type of organism called a virus. We don't technically call it a living thing, but it was a virus. It had only 4 genes and made 4 proteins. This was the first living thing that had its DNA code sequenced, and it was the idea behind starting the project to work out the sequence for human DNA. So that virus only made 4 proteins, much simpler. The problem with human DNA is that it's much bigger. It's on 46 chromosomes and it has about 22,000 genes, and that was the beginning of the Human Genome Project. The idea was to find out the sequence of code on all the DNA in human beings. It started in 1990, went all the way through to 2003. So it took 13 years and it took work from various scientists in different countries around the world. So it was a big collaboration project. But eventually in 2003, it resulted in the code for the whole of the human genome being read and recorded. So knowing the sequence can tell us about proteins and how they are made, but what possible use could that be other than just satisfying curiosity? Well, there are lots of possibilities that have been opened up as a result of the Human Genome Project, and we're going to look at just 3. So the first one is that the Human Genome Project allows us to search for genes linked to certain diseases. So we know that heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers are linked to DNA and can be inherited, or the likelihood of getting these diseases can be inherited. And if we can find these genes in individuals and know whether they're present or not, it can help make decisions about lifestyle choices to reduce the risk of getting those diseases. The second one is understanding and treating inherited disorders, for example, cystic fibrosis or sickle cell anemia. And these are disorders that are inherited from parents and can affect individuals. So the Human Genome Project will allow us to understand these diseases and understand what goes wrong, and furthermore treating them as well. We can figure out what kind of treatments that can be used to help either treat these diseases, or even more importantly, it might be possible to repair the faulty genes so that the person doesn't have the disorder in the first place. So that's 2 possible uses. The third one is not necessarily to do with health, but we can also work out migration patterns of human beings. So early in the history of human beings, they spread and moved around the planet. And if you can compare the DNA from lots of different people, you can see the similarities and differences and compare the DNA and see where people came from and work out the history of the evolution of human beings. So that will give you an idea about human history. Okay, so that's the information we need about the Human Genome Project. It's all about working out the code that's on the DNA to figure out what proteins are made and what problems there are that could be caused by proteins going wrong and how they could possibly be fixed, and also information about human history. That's it for this video today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.